Hello and welcome to A Celtic World, the YouTube channel connecting Celtic fans all over the world. From Fort Augustus to Fort Worth, from Butte to Bangkok. Whatever strange spot you're currently watching us from, you're part of A Celtic World. And what strange spots do we have represented tonight? We have Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. G'day, David.
Hello.
Hello.
I was waiting for more of an intro of myself, Gav. I thought you'd
Oh, sorry.
Get
I'll big
people
you up more
excited
next
about me.
time.
Aye, why not? How are you anyway? Delighted to be
I'm
here.
very well indeed, yes. We're all delighted. And also delighted from far away, Perth in Western Australia, is Paul.
Good evening, chaps. A bit toasty again here. Another 40+ degree day. So yeah, I've decided to crack a little beer, and it's that kind of weather. So looking forward to a little chat and a little cooling down beverage.
Very nice. Enjoy that tasty beverage. Morning, Frank, and hello to everybody else who's joining us. And if it's your first time, or you haven't already, as I see people saying on other channels, please consider subscribing. I've made a plea. I'd seldom do it. I always forget. You know, you're supposed to do this on every show. But I did a bit of a one on the last show saying, come on, help us above 900. We're 9 short of 900. And now we're at the mighty figure of 905. Paul, can you believe it?
I thought you'd be like pretending it was more like 905,000. So maybe not. Maybe still to come. Still to come.
Well, I mean, getting above the 4 digits, I think, is a bit of a milestone. So that's our push now. So if you're watching, we're just new this year, and clicking the like and subscribe, particularly, button on this channel makes a big difference. And we'll notice it and we'll appreciate it more than all those others on thousands and thousands.
Well, we clearly haven't got the pulling power of young Hamish. I noticed he was well over 1,500 inside of 2 or 3 days.
Within a second, yes. He just announces he's starting a new channel and he leapfrogs us.
Friend of the show. So you may maybe throw some scraps from his table. You never know.
He's put in the yards over many years, though, hasn't he? So he totally deserves it.
He's a good lad.
All right, so let's see what's on the menu for today. Oh, no, I haven't done the menu. It's not Keith from Come On the Hoop Celtic. That was Monday. So I'll just tell you what the menu is. We're going to just have a little chat about where we're at the moment, how confident we're feeling after the St Mirren game. And we're going to talk about the issue of player rotation and how that feeds into the question of whether Brendan is an elite level manager and what evidence we've seen of that. We're going to do a little bit on walking tours, or tours, Celtic tours. And then we're going to get into the Kilmarnock preview, which is really what this one's all about, because Danger Derek is waiting to pounce, cause us misery yet again. All right, so what's the first of those things? Well, brief top-level thoughts, please, from the panel of 2. Maybe somebody else will join us. As to where you think we are now after those last 2 victories. Has the ship been steadied a bit? Are we back on easy street and going to cruise to 3 points every game now? Or are we just papering over the cracks and it'll all soon fall apart? I've seen all of these opinions espoused by Celtic fans recently. So, David, to channel Basement Jacks, where's your head at?
My head is at remembering that whenever we started to feel comfortable at the beginning of the season, that things could go wrong quite quickly. And that from what we considered pronouncements from Brendanrodgers as getting sensible and sort of mature, he would go off and throw players under the bus. So I don't think 2 victories, while they're good, that does keeps us at the top of the league. Rangers failed to do so last night. We're grinding out results. That's what we're doing. This is just business-like, right? There's no joy in it yet. Does anybody get excited about seeing the next game? I think most games we're kind of worried that it could all go horribly wrong. We're still not sure what team's going to go out. I do have an interesting statistic about Brendanrodgers from his first time at Celtic since in 2017. And in 73 games of tenure, and this was in September of 2017, he'd only fielded the same team in back-to-back games once. So he's got form. Now,
well, that'll feed into our later conversation.
So let's
Remember, these
hold
are just
that one.
top level.
Yes. So top level, I would say I think more of the same to come. If it's stability, I guess it's grinding out results, but I don't see enough changes in the tactics and approach to suggest. I mean, you get little things from Kyogo suddenly turning up again, and that's wonderful. But for how long? Paul, your views.
Well, you know me, gents. I'm a half glass full kind of guy. So without getting overly excited, there was a few little interesting things out of the St Mirren game, and we could just as easily be looking at two losses, or a draw, or a couple of draws, or we could be out of the cup and we could be behind in the league, and we're neither of those things. So that's the high level positive. I think the St Mirren game was interesting because it showed a willingness to change tactics, which we haven't really seen. And if let's like, we've moved past all the issues with recruitment for now. We're stuck with the squad we've got. The points we're going to come on to, we've barely played a settled side, and in fact, we've missed a good chunk of our key players most of the season. We've rarely had our solid spine either playing or on any kind of form or service. So given all of that, I'm reasonably happy with where we are in terms of, you know, our position in the league and in the cup. I obviously would like to see us playing more attractive, free-flowing, high-scoring games, but it's got to be a wee bit of realism in terms of what we're actually dealing with. We had a back four of basically a secondary back four at the weekend. We had Ralston, Welsh, Scales, and Burnaby was our back four. Now, I don't think anyone thinks that with everyone available and fit, that's our best back four. I don't think any of those would be in the first choice of the back four. So we're dealing with that. We're dealing with other key players missing. I am a little bit concerned about the weekend, and that is kind of where we are at the minute. You know, every game's a potential banana skin, but the facts are we're a couple of chances away from 9-9. You know, we should have beaten Aberdeen. So I think we're a fair bit, you know, we're better off than we were when, you know, we were getting beat by Hearts and these things were happening. And it was all doom and gloom then. It was, you know, a catastrophe then. And then we went on a run and, you know, we won 4 in a row and, you know, beat Rangers, happy days. And we've continued that with one little slip up. So, yeah, we'd like it to be better. But if we grind out the next 13 games or whatever it is and a few in the cup and win a double, I'm quite happy with that. Quite happy. You're on mute, Gav. Come on.
Bloody hell, these dogs. I wish they would tell me when we've stopped barking. Now you can unmute yourself. Yes, we'd all be perfectly happy if we ground out a double this year. That would be amazing. But there's a point there that Frank mentioned about momentum. And the thing about momentum has been with them and not with us for the last period. But what's the thing about momentum? It shifts, right?
Yes, it does shift.
So yes, they're hot on our heels. It's a bit pathetic when you see it all over social media, like Celtic fans celebrating that they're still top because, like, you know, couldn't get a credit card between us.
Well, I think we need to start scoring some more goals because that's at the minute that's the only reason we're still top. Goal difference is the same. It's goals scored that is keeping us top. To, you know, 2-0 win and a clean sheet was a really good result, I think. Given how that game played out and how much St Mirren are on form. So, you know, another clean sheet and a win at the weekend would do me fine.
The problem for me is that I can't quite move past the January transfer window just as quickly as Paul.
You're gonna have to, David. You're gonna have to.
Right, yeah.
You can't. You've got to, because it's gone, right? We can. I'm sick hearing about it. I'm as sick with it how it went down as everyone else. but that's piss all we can do about it.
Well,
And-
not necessarily, Paul. You know that there's the rumours flying around. Gav, are you going to introduce this into the show? Is something actually fundamentally changing about these things?
We'll see.
Well, I don't have it down on the run sheet, but what are you talking about, David?
The rumours that Mark Lowell is in fact actually leaving the club in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that actually something that we think is true? It seems to be coming from some.
No idea.
It would. Well, it could just as easily be true, or it could just as easily be wishful thinking. By some wag that is in the know and it's sort of starting to gain traction. My only comment on that would be, why is he? If we know he's going, why is he hanging around to the summer?
What's he doing in the interim?
A lot of money.
Yeah,
a lot of money.
Well, I don't know. There's little point in him being there. If he's going to be on his way out, there's little point in having his sticky little fingers over planning for the summer window. So, I think we're all on the same page. Pretty much as a support, we'd be quite happy to see the back of him and his dad. But that's only that's with the assumption that we're going to put anything better in its place. So, but to the earlier point, there's nothing we can do about that. We're dealing with the squad we've got, and we've got to make the most of it. It's a little bit threadbare, and it's not full of the first pick players necessarily, and a few people have gone off the boil. And in the circumstances, last couple of results, the results have been okay. Performance is not quite there, but they hope that they will come.
Yeah, the way managers, it's a good time for them to leave and come in at the end of a season, because then you've got pre-season, get your feet under the table, all of that. When it comes to recruitment employees, it should be as soon as the window closes. That's when the recruitment merry-go-round starts, so people can get in, get their feet under the table, understand the brief, get to know the people they're working with before the next window comes around. But look, we're not going to talk about it too much because it's just, we don't know what's in the story. And, we're not one of those channels that always has to, regurgitate whatever the latest tittle-tattle is. We're not under pressure to put out content every day, even if it's complete balderdash. But here's a little something to entertain you. I was playing with AI image generation stuff today.
I always worry where these things go when you say things like that, Gav, but carry on.
And you're not prepared for it. So I asked him to create an image of a Celtic world doing a podcast with 4 of our main contributors. Would you like to see what it came up with?
Yes, go on.
See if you can identify who these people are. And you could probably introduce this by saying, this is AI Celtic world. Oh dear.
Is that Jim Goodwin in the top right?
That's you, obviously.
Well, I'll take
right.
that. I'll take that. AI notes. Or is that me in the bottom right? I don't know which one's supposed to be.
I think AI hates me and I'm bottom left.
I'm pretty happy with mine. I'll take that.
Yeah, well, mine obviously is the most accurate representation with skin tone and the guns and everything. That's very, very accurate.
You must have given it a bit more of a fantastical feed for that one, to be honest.
No, well, I mean, I kept it straight. Well, who's in the bottom corner beside David?
So it is me then, right? Okay, so that was Steve.
That must be Steve then, is it?
Steve right? With the shirts in the background, yeah.
So is me and Steve? Are me and Steve twins? Are we brothers? Brothers, probably. He'd have to be.
No, well, I kept asking it to make Steve older because it kept giving me like a 30-year-old model.
Well, yeah, he has got more wrinkles. He has got more wrinkles than me, so he'd be my older. He'd be my dad, maybe.
But obviously, the David one made me laugh the most when I saw
it's
that.
A belter.
It's pretty funny. Oh dear, the times we have. All right, so let's get on to that subject then of player rotation and Brendan being an elite level manager. Now then, the topic involves these two connected issues, and I want to consider something Brendan said recently and something we've all noticed that he's been doing, and that's rotating players a lot. The first 11 and the first team squad have been changing almost all the time. He made a point of saying Kyogo and Palma weren't dropped, but Well, were they? That's the big question. He will doubtless say he picks the squad he thinks are the best suited to succeed in whatever the specific game requires, right? Making himself sound every inch the elite manager. So we have a little video to introduce. Oh, no, we don't. God damn it. You made a video, didn't you, David?
I did.
And you popped it into that folder.
I did.
And I have failed to take it from that folder. So,
Well, we can keep talking if you want to do that now.
okay. So to introduce this issue of player rotation, I'm just going to throw it out to you guys. Just, knock the ball around between yourselves for 3 minutes and 40 seconds.
So, Paul, I would take us back to that figure that I mentioned earlier, because I looked this up and I hadn't really fully appreciated just how much this was just part of Brendan Rodgers' game. So that figure came from a Scotsman article in September 2017. In 73 game tenure, he only played the same squad back to back in games once. So if we think about the idea of squad rotation around fixture congestion, players rest, tactical adaptation and all the rest of it, there's something that's just inherent in Brendan's tactics that is squad rotation, that he believes firmly in it.
I think there's validity. That does surprise me because the years pass by and you can remember consistent players that played every game, guys like Scott Sinclair, and your back two and you're probably most of your back four and your keeper. But the sands of time go by and the memory gets a little bit sketchy and you forget that there's probably it's maybe only one player each game that's been rotated out. But
I think it must be that.
Yeah, so I guess my memory of that season, such as it is, I don't feel like we had many injuries, particularly that season. We had the rotation would have become about generally to just kind of rest players, or from a tactical point of view, it would have been horses for courses, and would have had choice of quality replacements. Whereas this season really feels like we've just been, I feel like the treatment room's had a revolving door on it. We've barely had an opportunity to pick from our best squad. In fact, more often than not, we're on the sort of reserves, and sort of the squad's been pretty thin, particularly in areas like centre back. I'd love to know the stats on how often we've played the same centre back pairing, and I'd be very surprised if it's much more than we've played the same centre back pairing, match on match, or say 3 games on a run. I'd be very surprised if we've done that. And centre back, as Rodgers made comments on at the weekend, it's 2 players, but it's 1 position. It's a genuine partnership. You want that rock solid. The difference between CCV and Starfelt, night and day to where we're dealing with at the minute. And in this topic, and we'll come into this in a bit more detail. It's the centre back area. I don't mind tweaking your front players here and there, just to, especially with if players are a little bit off form, give them a kick up the backside, or if the tactics are, suggest some other player should be in. But you'd want your centre back pairing as solid as possible, and your back four, in fact. And I think that's one of the reasons we've been vulnerable is the defense is not solid. It's unsteady. And generally you're having more than one of your backup players having to play extended periods. How are you doing, Gav?
Oh, that's wonderful. I'll play the video because it's tied. These 2 issues are tied. Player rotation. Is it a feature of how Brendan manages? Have we seen enough from him this season to suggest that he is an elite level manager like everybody told us we were getting when he came in? Let's just have a quick look at his career. It's a very short video. Then we'll talk after that. Okay, so that was a nice little video there. Clearly, Rodgers has had some moments as a manager. He's had some success. Regime propaganda for Rodgers? Well, not really. That's just sort of laying out the facts of his career to date, isn't it? And we need to talk about him because there's a lot riding on Rodgers from now until the end of the season. So, have you seen enough from him, David, to think that he's got what it takes in terms of tactical flexibility and man management and inspiration to get us on that kind of momentum shift that's going to take us to the title?
No. So I don't think we've seen the need. So on the squad rotation, right, you would be expecting him to deal with each match in a better way and play exciting football and for everything to improve over a period of time. But I think we can point to players regressing. Kyogo, for one, has not been able to play as he has and score goals as he has under Rodgers. Rodgers is the person that must take responsibility for that. We had a chat about it. He's 29, Kyogo. Have we seen the best of him yet? I think there's a lot more in Kyogo than another 2-3 years at least. Anyway, I would think he's a fit, dynamic, professional player. But we've seen him regress, I would suggest, under Rodgers. The squad rotation piece that Rodgers seems fixed on, yes, there's a lot of being injuries, etc. But at an elite level, he should be in charge of, January transfer windows and ensuring that he gets from wherever. I spoke to a friend of mine who's been in sports for many, many years, and I said, "What's the most important thing?" And he said, "Winning. Winning is the most important thing." So I said, "Well, what about developing players?" And he said, "No, that's the coaches. What the manager has to do is insist that the coaches develop people and ensure things are in place." If you look across his managerial career, I don't think that he stands out. If you look at those win rates, etc., and the titles that he's achieved, they're not outstanding. They're not elite. They're good. He's obviously considered highly within the industry by people like Jose Mourinho, etc. But I don't think I've seen.
Paul, how confident are you that Brendan's going to work his magic, if he's got any magic left in his bag?
I think he's dealing with a worse squad than he was last time he was here. He's definitely dealing with a worse squad than when Ange was here. We haven't really seen... One of the most impressive things in his first tenure wasn't who he signed, and he signed some good players. Signed Dembele, signed Sinclair, a few others. But the most impressive thing is what he did with the existing playing group. He took most of that existing playing group to another level. He got a fresh lease of life out of Bruni. Everybody thought Bruni was done, and he took him back to probably some of the best form of his career. Guys like Armstrong went to a completely other level. And there was quite a few in the squad that look at Christie. Christie was, he got most out of him. And yeah, I don't really think we've seen that yet. If anything, you'd kind of hope in the second half, if he still got it, you'd think the second half of the season, he's going to have more time on the training ground. He doesn't have a game every week, 2 games a week. You'd hope that, look, really, I think you can only really point at Matt O'Reilly as a player who's better this year than last. And I tend to agree with the snitch, or who's the snitch. He's a really solid manager. I'm not sure he's elite. I think because of where he's been and what he's been paid, it was a reasonable coup to get him the first time. But he needed an opportunity to rehabilitate after Liverpool. And yeah, we were a great platform for that. And then obviously he did his midnight flit and went to Leicester, and he did okay there. I think he did pretty well at Leicester until the wheels came off. And look, a lot of players were sold from under him, and he didn't get the opportunity to reinvest. And that lack of investment is something that's an issue here. And again, without harping on about the window, if you believe the rumours, then he was offered a good chunk of players, and he basically said, "No, why would I take them? They're no better than what we've got." And he's right to do that. If that's what happened, he's right to reject like for like. There's only a point in bringing players in if they're going to be better than what's there. So I think even just getting some of our key players back from injury and back up to speed and a run in the team, regardless of what he's doing on the training ground, that would do it. If he can get CCV back in the team, if he can get Hatate back in the team, if it's not a taboo subject, if you can get Abada's head right and him back in the team, like, we've got good players that haven't really contributed this season. If he can find a way to use Kyogo in whatever system he wants to run, then that's, you know, there's plenty of uplift regardless of that. So I'm not all guns blazing on this one, but I think we've got a better squad. I think we've got a better squad than that. I've been consistent on that.
Yeah, we have been saying if when so and so comes back for ages, and it's never really happened. You know,
And the point, I agree.
And,
well, I don't disagree with that, but we're still winning games without them. So
yeah,
they'll come back at some point.
Yeah. I think you wanted to tie in the player loans aspect to the whole rotation conversation, Paul. What would you like to say on that?
Sorry, in terms of the people, the loans in relation to, did you say loans? Is that?
Yes,
I think this came up Mikey
players are loaned out.
Well, it's interesting. We've rotated players, and you know that's led to some players thinking they haven't had enough of opportunity. And there's Mikey Johnson's on record as saying he had to get out of Celtic. Well, I don't think there's too many people that were keen to hang on to him. But then, you know what happens. He's down there 30 seconds and he scored on his debut. And no doubt, if he has a good run of form down there, there'll be a bunch of people saying, yeah, get him back, get him in. You won't hear that from me. But I do, like, all joking aside, I'm not convinced that what's playing at the moment is showing much more than what he did. You know, he had that, he came off the bench and scored 2 crucial goals against Dundee. He did, some things would happen when he was on the pitch. I don't think he was much more or less inconsistent than a lot of the guys on the wings. Our wing play this year has been bloody awful. Even the guys that have done the best, which is probably Palma and Stats, he's flipped from between the sublime to the ridiculous, so often in the same game.
So you think the rotation is going to carry on throughout the season? That's just going to be a feature rather than a temporary necessity? Well,
David Stats suggests that it's how he operates. So it probably is. I think my biggest thing on the rotation, and I'll cover this now, is the centre backs. And I said it earlier. Like, every time Nawrocki plays, he looks solid. He plays the ball out from the back. He's the one player in the centre back line that looks comfortable on the ball, that was willing to step out, play vertical passes, get progressive. And then the next game, he's back on the bench. Look, Welsh threw his body on the line, and him and Scales defended the box well against St Mirren. But half the time they were giving the ball away, and that's what was leading to the sort of backs to the wall type of performance. I just don't. For me, Nawrocki's, after CCV's, the only other clear footballer in centre back that we've got, and he's in. Yeah, the Aberdeen game, he was on a booking early, which he probably shouldn't have been, and then he was probably, lucky to not get a second yellow, even though the first wasn't deserved, and he backed off because he was on that booking. But that's really the only thing that he's done that's not great. Like, I just don't understand.
So if you were in the job, you would play Nawrocki.
I'd play him.
Brendan, does Brendan know who his best 11 is, David?
No, and I think he flip flops too much, and I think his public beratement of players also is a bit cringy as well. So whatever has happened, I don't remember him previously behaving in that way in terms of throwing players under the bus. And I agree with Paul that you see players turn up and we think, okay, well, that's great. They're in that position now, that they've done a great job there. And suddenly they're benched. And then we're no longer. And I think the man management across the team, in terms of, take Lagaboki, who had his loan or transfer was stopped simply because we got an injury. There doesn't seem to be that planning that's going in place, right? And considering who's exposed for us, our best players exposed, taking into account the Asian Cup. So I don't think we see Rodgers with a team that you know are going to play well for us every single time. Some players will turn up, and then you'll see, but even the players themselves who are getting played, they'll just go off the boil. I mean, think of McGregor. Have we seen McGregor at his very best in this? We saw one time where I think it was Awata came on and allowed McGregor to play further up. He took some of the pressure off, and McGregor seemed then to be back in the game, and the midfield seemed to be able to dictate the play, and then that was gone. And then it's back to whomever's on the back line, because we never know at the moment, and we fail to bring in backs when we're clear or make any moves for goalkeepers, etc. But good on Joe Hart and his recent performances. But we're exposed, and I don't see, and it changes. So no, Brendan Rodgers doesn't know. I don't know what the best. Well, perhaps if we went through the squad, we would be able to say, "Yep, I'd be playing them." Noroski, I would say, for example, why is he not getting a consistent game when every time he's turned up?
I don't think it's a surprise that he doesn't know his best team, because look at the recruitment and look what he's left with. A lot of those players, call them project, call them inexperience, whatever you want to, however you want to label them. I'm not nobody thinks that they were first team ready this season. What we expected was to replace some of the first team players that went with proper first team quality players, and some of those guys that have been asked to play more regularly than I think they should ever have been asked to play, have therefore been forced in sooner than they really need to. Like, guys like Yang and Home, and even the likes of Palmer, you wouldn't have wanted to be like, he's definitely doubted, he's had good stats, but he's a definite downgrade on Jota. You're effectively relying on a bunch of players who are nowhere near as experienced as the players that they've replaced, either that have left the club or have been injured. So to me, it's absolutely no surprise that he doesn't know his best side, because he's got
I don't understand the logic of that. What you're saying is he's a bunch of players who aren't really good enough to play in the first team. But he sees them in training. He's a manager, very experienced. He should be able to look around and say, right, if they're not good enough, they don't get a run in the team. These guys do.
Well, yeah, but they're all about the same level. That's my point. Like, I don't think there's anyone head and shoulders above the rest. You've got CCV, who's a first pick if he's fit. You've got Hatahi, he's a first pick if he's fit. You've got Kyogo, who's a first pick if he's on form. And you've obviously got Joe Hart, because we haven't got another keeper at the club. But beyond that, there's nobody that you would really say is nailing down their place.
So all our players are so equally shite that it's very hard to tell them apart. Like,
I think there's a bit of that going around at the minute. Jesus. Absolutely. Well, Johnson's injured. Greg Taylor's injured. If they're fit, they're the best fullbacks at the club as well. They're not around either. But it doesn't surprise. Like, we've got 6 wingers or whatever. I don't think any of those wingers are particularly better than any of the rest of them. That's a perfect example.
Let me give two points then again about this idea that he knows his best team, or from the point of view of managing players that he has got. Let's look at Palmer. Pretty clear he should never have been taking penalties. Clear, right? That was clear to all of us, and yet he still gets to go up and start taking penalties. Now, hopefully, our new boys come in and he's going to put them away for us. But he should never have been allowed. He was meant to be the spot kick specialist, right? Pretty obvious. And then Palmer suddenly, so he has this positive influence, and we think, okay, we've got a replacement for Jota. And then he becomes this selfish individual who runs around, takes shots when he should be passing that ball to players who are in better positions. But there's no coaching of all of that. So that's one. We see it. Why wasn't that getting dealt with when it could have been? Now, the second part is, at what time of the game will Brendan Rodgers put on the team which will win the game? 60th minute. We all know it. The team which is going to win the game for you gets put on after the 60th minute, not before the 60th minute. after the 60th minute. He doesn't know.
Okay, we need to move the conversation on, lads. So we'll just have to hope that the rest of the season, all these things fall into place. There's a lot of things need to fall into place for us to walk to the title. Did I say walk to the title? That takes us on nicely to our next segment. Just a little bit here. We're going to talk about, Matthew Marr, who we had on the show before, of Hill Hill History. He does walking tours. You can see the link there, celticwalkingtours.wordpress.com. And this is his website. And he does various walking tours around Glasgow. And we have a little video that we made for him, which is on his site, which we're just going to play for you now as a little bit of light relief from that depressing conversation about how clueless and rudderless we appear to be. Here we go. Very good. Celtic walking tours. Have either of you done any Celtic walking tours?
I certainly haven't.
I haven't, but I think the one that I want to do is the Celtic Matchday pub walk. That one looks as if it's the most interesting to me.
To you?
Well, that's fully booked, in fact, all of the tours are up until May booked, and the only ones not yet out are April dates. So if you want to go along, and they're waiting for the split fixture dates to agree which one. So they're all fully booked. So good on Matthew.
I've certainly walked between plenty of pubs outside and around the ground, so I don't know if that counts as a tour of duty.
And as a kid,
maybe.
I was left outside a few waiting.
Well, I was just talking to my missus about travel plans for later in the year. We might be going back in like September or something like that. So I'll definitely going to make it over to Glasgow and do a tour or two like that. And that brings us on to another thing I'd like to talk about, which is the name Davy McLaughlin. Does that mean anything to you?
It absolutely
Runs
does.
the Celtic too. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah. By all accounts, Davy is a fantastic guy. And this is him on Twitter, and you can see there it says no DMs, please. So it's a bit of a quandary because I would love to have him on the show. We've talked about it, I think Paul, David before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'd love to have him on for a chat. So Davy, hopefully if you see this and you'd be up for gracing us with your presence sometime, drop us a wee hello via Twitter and we'll take it from there. That would be awesome. I'm sure he's got tons of good stories to tell. An incredibly positive guy, it seems. Have you done the Celtic Park tour with Davy showing you around? I know
never
Jerry
have,
did
no.
that. Jerry did it recently.
Jerry did it. Yeah.
It's not like Davey's probably the most high profile on Twitter, but I think there's a squad of them that do
Yeah,
that.
team.
Yeah, good chunk of them. I've never done it either. I've been in the boardroom and stuff like that. I've been at a sort of CSC end of season dinner that was at the club's function ground, and we got a kind of mini, not the tour as it is formally now, but a bit of a mini tour. And my brother was actually he was actually the international development coach for Celtic for a few years, and so I've had a wee wander around the back lot and through the tunnel and on the pitch and all that sort of
Jobs
stuff.
for the boys, bloody nepotism,
unofficial stuff. But yeah, whenever I'm next back, and I'm keen to do the formal tour, even though I've had a bit of a poke around there at various times in the past.
Well, can anyone advise Plunge McNugget? Do we have an IT expert in the house who can answer this question?
It's a direct
Direct
message.
Direct message. He doesn't want to be inundated with people sending messages, probably saying, "What time do we turn up for the tour? Can I take photos?" All that sort of stuff isn't necessary. All right. So anyway, Danger Derek. That's what we're here to talk about, lads. Let's do our Kilmarnock preview. And we'll start with this. Placing the table.
I thought we were going to start with the badge and the squirrels and the.
Oh, we've done the squirrels
in his
today.
finger again. Every
no
time.
need to mention prostate exams.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But it feels like a prostate exam with having so much pressure applied behind us by Rangers, does it not? Is that a bit of a tenuous link? Well, anyway, we're still top of the league, as David says.
Yeah.
But not by much. Look at that. By a ball hair, as they say in Glasgow. But, you know, still, that's where we are. What about the form table? Slightly less pleasant reading. 5 wins in a row for them. And we're not that far behind. I mean, the stats are obviously still make some encouraging reading.
I think if you went to
context.
7, I think if you went to 7, that would flip over. Is it 7 games ago?
Thankfully, it doesn't go to 7. Could go to 10 if you wanted, but I'm not going to.
Let's have a. Well, I think we would flick to the top if you went to 10. But anyway, close enough.
So, having talked about whether Rodgers knows his best starting 11, do we know who we want to see play in this game, David? Do you want to see? Well, you talk me through who you'd like to see starting.
Let me go through the team. Where is the team? We are obviously going to start with Hartnett in goals. Noroski. You want to? Do you?
Just call him Rocky and be done with it. And
let's just call him Rocky.
Can't have a crack at you.
Yeah. Norky.
Don't call him that.
I think obviously now gets us a start. McGregor will obviously be there. Who else is sort of providing a threat up front? Kyogo, you want to be? Maybe he's got back in form again as well. Maybe. Let's see if we can develop some sort of strike partnership there. And I guess from that point of view, those are kind of the individuals I'd probably say, right, go Matt O'Reilly. Maybe kind of look to change and see whether or not there's anything that could be done to support the midfield so that we can move the ball from the back through the midfield to scoring positions quickly. So whomever within the team can achieve that, and formation allows it to do. We're at home on this one. Our form's not great. That's another telling thing, isn't it? But whoever can do that, can move that ball. And whenever we seem to be able to do that, whenever we can move the ball quickly up, we're a threat. And the issue is that doesn't change. The tactics don't change regardless of the individuals in the team. And we're exposed, and other teams come and have a go, every single one of them. None of them are scared to come.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're both aware. I know you are, David, but I had an interesting exchange with Mahaish, I think it's pronounced, in the YouTube comments, who's
Yes.
full of sort of tactical analysis. He was talking about the last game, Paul, and how it may have worked in that game just about, but there was a lot of chaos. We were never in control of that game, and we can't use those tactics in all games. Are you expecting to see a very different approach to this Kilmarnock fixture?
Interesting one. I had a similar exchange with him, and he was commenting that Bernabe actually was making up the extra man in midfield, as Greg Taylor quite often does. So that was Brennan's a lot of smoke and mirrors on when he's asked about players coming back from injury. And if you guys, I don't know, you probably covered the Viaplay interview comments with Lennon and Goodwin after the match. Jim Goodwin asked him a straight question about injuries, and he said Greg Taylor was a week or so away, and then he sort of waffled on about a few other bits and pieces and didn't really say anything about the other two. But the one bit of information we got is Greg Taylor is back in the squad and available for Saturday. So on that basis, if he's genuinely back up to speed, for me, he's back in. And he would take some of the chaos away. Now, I understand the irony of me sounding particularly positive about Greg Taylor returning to the first team squad, and I think it's not lost on any of us. But I don't think there can be any doubt that, and we've said we're stuck with the squad we've got. I don't think there can be any doubt that Greg Taylor is an upgrade on Bernabe. So if he can be fit, if he is fit enough to start, then for me, I would start him. Yeah, good to see Frank's as positive as ever. I was worried that he might be
just the facts.
I was worried he might be getting pessimistic on us. I think he will go with the two up front, particularly if Taylor is fit, because Taylor will give a bit more discipline to the fullback position, but he will add the extra man in midfield, and like I say, be less chaotic than Bernabe. I'm not expecting too many changes, I'll be honest. Assuming everybody's fit, and that's what we don't know. But Kilmarnock will be tough. They'll sit low. They'll try and hit us on the break. They'll be physical. That's why I expect Welsh to probably keep his place. One, he had a pretty good game, and two, he is probably more physical than Nawrocki, albeit that I think Nawrocki's a better footballer. Ada will probably keep his place because he's physical and gives us something different. I'd be surprised if Kyogo was not dropped but rotated after scoring a goal and potentially picking it back up. So yeah, one or two changes. He's never going to leave it identical, I wouldn't have thought. But yeah, fingers crossed Greg Taylor's fit to start.
Well, let's take this contribution then. It's the man himself. I was just referencing the exchange we had in the comments. He says, "Hi guys, Killy probably will run a press of some sort with a phased retreat to a lowish block. David spot on. Celtic have to transition quickly, and that might mean more long balls even."
Which
Thomas Bradley also pointing out that doesn't help.
It doesn't. It's a bit of a disgrace that there's pitches for clubs with much tinier budgets than us that are looking better at this time of year. Never mind the lols being kicked out. Whoever's looking after that pitch needs chased as well, to be honest.
Just get rid of everyone.
Why not?
Playing staff, recruitment, coaches, groundsman, tea lady.
I'll leave the tea lady alone. She's doing a sterling job as far as I can gather. Nah, it's spot on. When we moved the ball quickly against St Mirren, we caused them danger, and that's where goals came from. It's like, look at the first goal. It's pretty simple. Play the ball quickly, move it forward quickly. 1 and 2 touches, stick it in the net. It's not that bloody complicated.
You're expecting not a very changed lineup from the last game?
Not hugely. 2 or 3 maybe. 2 maybe. I think 2 maybe.
Interesting. And you're expecting both Ida and Kyogo to start?
I am.
As if we're onto a whole new approach. You think this is going to be the way forward?
Well, I don't, but I don't think Mahesh is right. They'll play a low block like most teams do when they come to Celtic Park. So there isn't necessarily that opportunity to spin in behind, which both Ida and Kyogo want to do. But Ida gives you a bit more of a physical presence on the last defender. And Kyogo, coming from deeper, can be disruptive between the lines as he was on the counter against St Mirren. So I just think they'll both play. Like, yeah, we'll see. But knowing that, just as easily, neither of them.
But if one of them doesn't play, it's not because they've been dropped. What did you make of that? David, did you think that was a bit of a silly, sort of agitated response from Rodgers? It wasn't necessary.
Well, again, this is sort of evidence of what he does. You know, you think for a period of time, he's in tune, he's aligned to the board, he's aligned to Celtic media. He seems that, you know, he's making nice comments, and then suddenly he snaps again. He's off. There's an inconsistency there, isn't there?
I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Like, Brendanrodgers is a massive egotist. We know that. And like him trying to exert his authority, and he's like, if he's getting a bit of like up and at him and a bit of swagger, if he's got that in the press conference, hopefully he's got it in the changing room and on the training pitch. I've got no issue with that. I'd much rather be like that than the wishy-washy kind of, you know,
passive, Brendan.
Yeah, passive. Yeah, I'm not saying, you know, it's a delight, and it, you know, it was awkward as, you know, I hated being in that room and hated being the journalist that took the brunt of it. But if he's getting a bit niggly and a bit, you know, he's got a bit of arrogance and a bit of crack about him again, then fair play. I'd much rather that than as Gav says, be passive and sort of, you know, not look like he's, you know, that up for
and
it.
you see all the press saying, you know, there's Rodgers saying that people are out to get him. People want to bring him down. I don't know who he could be talking about. Certainly not us. All these idiots. Hilarious.
So the issue is that for me is I would agree with it if that was a determined, you know, a pushback on the press, who we obviously know can have a bias against us, and you know, they're bigging up the other team. But there's a petulance to Rodgers, some of the recent stuff he said, isn't there? Like, oh, if it's not me, it's the board, etc. So he's kind of all palsy with the board again. It's that kind of stuff I can't be bothered with. So you can't say whether or not he's
You're
actually
not supposed to be. To me, I don't give a shit, to be honest. I don't think you've got to be bothered about it, or like it's all of that. All of those press conferences, I don't think he bothered about, you know, giving the press you know, I don't giving them information, or he's just there to sort of deflect, and you know, he's never been consistent once all season. And think about when he was here the first time, he was all sorts of fantastical nonsense came out of his mouth. Like, that's the thing. Like, he's night and day from somebody like Ange. Like, you've got the press in the palm of his hand. You know, he's got a clear communication at all times. Brendan's always been smoke and mirrors and, you know, fantastical nonsense. I couldn't care. Like, I honestly couldn't care less about it, to be honest. I only really care about the pitch, and yeah, it's not been brilliant, but there you go. He has, like, but I'd much rather him being up for it and a bit of niggle than passive and wishy-washy, which he has been. I think, but he was inconsistent again in that press conference. So he's created a bug. I don't think there's much of I don't think he's getting it from all angles, to be honest, particularly in the press. He's probably getting it more from Celtic press than, you know, so this kind of thing than he is from the mainstream media. But I think he's trying to create a bunker mentality. But then he was asked, "Oh, you know, you think this bunker mentality that is being driven is good for you, so you can sort of, you know, get your troops kind of backs against the wall?" And then he tried to deny that there was a bunker mentality going on. So, like, I don't think he wants to provide any kind of sort of consistent comment. He's sort of, he's flip flopping all over the place. But that's been pretty consistent the whole time in press conferences. He says a lot and delivers very little, to be honest, in terms of actual content. And that's what I mean about his press conferences. You never get any information about players coming back from injury, timeframes, whereas Ange would be like, oh, he's 2 weeks away, he's on the training ground, but he's 3 weeks away. Like, some of the times he'd maybe play around with those timeframes just for a bit of you know, sport and to maybe fool the odd person. But he was pretty direct, whereas Rodgers is the exact opposite. He distracts from what's actually going on.
Well, you lament his inconsistency, but one thing I've always been consistent about is my lack of appreciation of the ubiquitous knee slide as the celebration du jour. So as we move into our Celtic socials, I'm going to kick it off with this entertaining little video that I found. Yeah, just stop doing the knee slide. Nice to see Kyogo in there, though. That was good. Among those particular geniuses of the knee slide. Your pitch has to be nice and wet. Don't do it on a dry pitch. There's too much friction. All right, and let's move on.
Oh dear.
He's not aware, is he, Paul? He's not aware.
Well,
What?
I think
Oh, I said
David's
something that can be seen.
David's
that's not
indulging
what I
in
meant.
some childish schoolboy humour, which I'm going to rise above at this particular
Yes.
point.
Okay. Highland Paddy's tweet. Whose was this?
This was
Paul?
mine. So yeah, so Highland Paddy tweeted this. Super Focus, I think maybe Shoot magazine. I've sort of date stamped this about 83, 84 season. And McInnes is one of my all-time favorite players, up there with the King of Kings. And it's just these, you don't get magazines anymore even. So I suppose maybe the Celtic View still does interviews or probably podcasts like this now, but there's some gems in here. Like it's the old style Q&A that you used to get in Shoot and Match magazine. Some particular gems. One is your favorite other team, Celtic reserves, like proper hardcore. He's asked to do a all-time 11. There's 3 Celtic players or 3 ex-Celtic players in there. Danny McGrain, Jiggy Johnson, Kenny Dalglish all make the lineup. But the one thing in here that struck me more than anything else, the little black and white photo at the top is his favorite female movie star, Bo Derek. So obviously fancied her in the early 80s, young man, little horn dog. But I can't believe I've called the Maestro a horn dog. But on that,
Please come on the show, Paul.
Well, he's down here, isn't he? He's in Sydney, so you never know. I doubt it. But the thing that I thought was funny in here, and we'll put this out, and you just clip this and put it on social media and see if anyone can tell us. I googled this and I couldn't find it anywhere. He's put in there. It's obviously before he was known as the Maestro. It's early in his career. It says nickname Reggie, and I've no idea. I never heard that, and it doesn't seem to be turned up on any Google search. So if anyone knows why Paul McStay was known as Reggie in the early 80s, I would be extremely excited to understand and learn that.
Well, I had a friend also called Paul, whose nickname was Reggie in the 80s. And it was because he resembled Reggie the Rat. I don't know who Reggie the Rat is, but I'm not suggesting that Paul McStay in any way resembled a rat in his younger years, but the only nickname I've ever heard for someone being Reggie was for that reason.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, there we go.
Oh, this is interesting.
Can tell us.
Yeah, if anyone knows why Paul McStay's nickname was Reggie, maybe because he's the king, and that was some sort of reference to royalty, the royalty of Celtic players. This is an interesting thing I saw. They think kit's all over. Bohemians have announced a new shirt sponsor, and it's Thin Lizzy. And then this whole thread is all about teams that are sponsored by bands. Super Furry Animals, greatest band ever to come out of Wales. They sponsored Cardiff City once upon a time. Do you love the Super Furry Animals, Paul?
I very much enjoy the Super Furry Animals.
And everything Griff Rhys has done as a solo artist.
And I like the fact that there was the whole Howard Marks kind of hookup during that 90s period. And he was used on the cover of a tremendous single, which I think is a record-breaking single of the most F words in a single song.
Well, there
Samantha
might be a few
Garifer.
F words from David here when I introduce this next. Can you see who that is? Sponsoring
Move that along quite quickly.
Clydebank being sponsored by Wet Wet Wet. You were a big fan of Wet Wet Wet, David, weren't you?
Actually, before I knew who they played for, I actually used to see them. They were very much a soul band, and
Uh-huh.
I used to see them in Glasgow Universal Union, etc. But no,
You were living in a world of make believe.
oh God.
Who else do we have here? Goldie Looking Chain, to bring it a bit more up to date. They sponsored Newport
well,
County.
About 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, it's not very up to date. Enter Shikari. Do you know who they are, Paul?
I am aware of Enter Shikari. They had like I'm pretty sure they're the ones that had the exclamation mark at one end and the upside down exclamation mark at the other end. Is that them?
I've absolutely no idea, but they sponsored St Albans.
Yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of theirs, to be honest.
Chase and Status sponsored Hammersmith FC. There's another good one coming up at some stage, isn't there? Churches, Electropop, they sponsored Whitburn Juniors, the Libertines. So quite a lot. It's amazing how many there are. Oh, there's a good one. Fontaine's DC. Do you know them? They sponsored. I think is that Bohemians as well.
I think it was, yeah.
So that'd be better than the bloody Daffabed if we could get a cool band on the front of a Celtic shirt.
I was just
Get
furiously
everybody
trying
to agree on a cool band, though.
I was just furiously trying to find. There's a band who sponsor a team, a Scottish band that sponsor a team from their hometown, which is in the far north of Scotland. And I was furiously trying to find out both. I try to remind myself of both the band and the town and the football club, but I've failed to do all of that. So I might be able to dig that out for next time.
Which pop star has a statue of him outside an English football team?
Sorry,
Pop star
I
no
know the
longer with
answer
us.
to that.
I was excited by Reggie, so Frank might have told us the answer here.
Go on, finish off your thought there, David.
I was sorry, I was getting involved in the Reggie thing. Michael Jackson outside of Fulham.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
I mean, I'm trying to find one that looks a bit like Paul McStay, but it doesn't look that much like him.
Reggie, because I browsed it there just while we were here. Oh, maybe right.
Frank Brennan's comment, let's read it, that McStay was nicknamed Reggie because he was supposed to resemble notorious London gangster Reggie Cray of the infamous Cray twins in the 1960s. He did resemble him in a timid McStay way, says Frank.
You can't please Frank. He's even got it up. He's even got it in for the maestro. I cannot believe this.
There you go.
So he obviously looked like Reggie, but not the other one. Is it Ray? Is it Ray?
Ronnie.
Didn't look like Ray. Ronnie, sorry, yeah. Didn't look like Ronnie.
No,
Ronnie would have been a better nickname than Reggie, I would say.
Reg is the one on the right of that picture, he says.
He did look more like Misty. He did look like more like Misty. He looks the better looking one. He does look more like the maestro than the other, but
there you go. Every day is a school day.
It is.
All right, so I don't think we're doing a watch along this weekend. It starts at 11. We're all in the same time zone. It starts at 11 p.m. It's a bit late for the three of us, certainly.
I'll be watching
but we'll be doing more of those. Go ahead, Paul.
I'll be up and watching it, but I don't fancy being focused enough to give you some inane drivel, as Frank might say.
Penetrating insight is more how I like to put it. What's this? Watford? Oh, that's an answer to David's question.
To David's question about Michael Jackson.
Maybe that. No, it's David.
So no, he was involved in.
Yes.
Off you go, Gav.
Michael Jackson is outside the Cottagers Stadium in Fulham, and totally unrelated note: Elton John once managed Watford. I think maybe those
owned Watford.
Owned Watford, yeah, owned Watford. Yeah, what did I say?
Managed. Took him all the way to the FA Cup final. Mo Johnston led the line. Dear. What a terrible situation.
Well, on that bombshell, On that bombshell, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone in the comments. We will be back on Monday to catch up with what's happened, how we got on, and where the momentum lies. So thanks one and all. And thank you, Paul. Thank you, David, for being here.
Cheers. Hail, hail. See you next time.
We'll see you all in the next one.
Welcome. Hail, hail.